Welcome to the Neurokrish Immersion. We are in the Many Faces of Freedom, Season 2, and in this episode, we explore Bhagwan Mahavira and his freedom through radical discipline. Imagine a man standing completely still. Villagers gather around him. Some mock him, some insult him, some throw stones. Children release dogs to frighten him. The man does not react. He does not even move. Not suppressed, not frozen, but utterly unmoved. This was Bhagwan Mahavira during the years of his great austerity. And his life forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. What if freedom is not the ability to act, but the ability not to react? Let me repeat that for you to sit with it. What if freedom is not the ability to act, but the ability not to react? Ask yourself that. Born Vardhamana, the one who prospers, in Bihar in the 6th century BCE, he was the prince who walked away. You will recall that the Buddha walked away too. He too was a prince. Bhagwan Mahavira was born into royalty. Comfort surrounded him. Security surrounded him. Power surrounded him. Human life, however, even in comfort, remained restless. Desire produced anxiety. Possession produced fear. Power produced violence. And yet, from a very young age, he saw what most people ignore. Even privilege of the wonderful kind that he had did not produce freedom. And at 30, he walked away. He renounced everything. What did he renounce? He gave up wealth and status. He gave up all his possessions. He gave up his own identity. He gave up the palace. And he gave up his clothing. Something that most of us would find very, very difficult even to contemplate. And he walked away from the palace and into a life of wandering austerity. What followed would become one of the most disciplined spiritual experiments ever undertaken. Tapasya, austerity as technology, not punishment, but a deliberate technique for liberation. In his teaching, every soul, the jiva, is naturally radiant, filled with infinite knowledge, infinite perception, infinite bliss. But this radiance becomes obscured because karma attaches itself to the soul. And in Jain thought, karma is not merely metaphorical. It behaves like subtle particles of matter that cling to the soul through passions. What are these passions that bind the soul? Anger, pride, deceit, greed, and attachment. These are the passions that bind the soul through karma. And these passions attract karmic accumulation. Over lifetimes, it is proposed that the soul becomes weighed down. And the path to freedom, therefore, requires samvara, stopping new karma from entering, nirjara, burning away accumulated karma, and tapasya, the fire that performs purification. Therefore, his goal was not to gain something, but to remove what obscures the soul. What Bhagwan Mahavira engaged in was 12 and a half years of radical discipline. No possessions, rarely eating, enduring hunger, heat, cold, and injury. And remember, he even gave up his clothes. And remember, he did not react to any provocation of any kind. Villagers, as we said earlier, often mocked him. Some attacked him. Animals would threaten him. But the remarkable thing was not the hardship he endured, it was his response. Because for Bhagwan Mahavira, the true prison was not the world. Anger, fear, desire, possession, the prison he saw was reactivity. If those impulses remained active, the soul, he felt, remains bound. There's a well-known story of the serpent Chandkaushika that illustrates this beautifully. He once encountered this venomous snake, feared throughout the region. And when Mahavira approached, the snake struck. Yet he did not retaliate. He did not flee. He remained completely calm. Tradition says that the serpent eventually withdrew. Whether literal or symbolic, the message to us is clear. Violence of any kind feeds on reaction. Remove reaction, and violence loses its power. A shepherd once left his cattle nearby while Bhagwan Mahavira was meditating in silence. When he went away and returned, he could not find the cattle, and he assumed wrongly that the silent ascetic was responsible for their disappearance. In anger, he released his dogs. The animals attacked. Bhagwan Mahavira remained still. No fear, no anger, no retaliation. Eventually, the shepherd realized his mistake and begged for forgiveness. Non-violence is not merely refusing to strike. It is removing the emotional impulse to strike. Alongside austerity, Bhagwan Mahavira emphasized meditation. Austerity weakens passions, and as we've spoken earlier, he practiced extreme austerity. Meditation dissolves identification with them. And 4 meditations were prescribed. Artha Dhyana, meditation born of worry that binds. Raudra Dhyana, meditation of anger and violence that binds. Dharma Dhyana, contemplation in truth and compassion. Shukla Dhyana, a pure luminous stillness that liberates. In Shukla Dhyana, the mind becomes completely still. Awareness rests in its own luminosity. It is this state that culminates in Kevala Jnana, perfect knowledge. This was his teaching. Now let's consider modern neuroscience in the context of this teaching and look back at the brain's tug of war, one of our earlier episodes. On the one side, the emotional circuits of the brain, the limbic system, the amygdala, our threat and reward networks, they generate impulses, fear, anger, desire. On the other side, our frontal brain, the regulatory networks, especially the prefrontal cortex, allow pause, reflection, restraint, and choice. Most human behavior is governed by whichever side wins that tug of war in that particular moment. Mahavira's discipline was one of the most radical experiments ever conducted in rewiring that balance. Through austerity and meditation, he weakened the emotional triggers that pull behavior towards impulse, and he strengthened the capacity for equanimity. Jain philosophy expressed this insight far more elegantly. It called the result ahimsa, non-violence born not of rule but of inner freedom. After 12.5 years of austerity and meditation, it is said that Bhagwan Mahavira attained Kevalanyana beneath a salt tree. Perfect knowledge, perfect perception, perfect freedom. But what he discovered was not escape from the world. In our arc of freedom, we've explored several archetypes. The Buddha, freedom through seeing suffering clearly. Adi Shankara, freedom through knowing the self. Sri Ramakrishna, freedom through love. Sri Ramana, freedom through inquiry. Vivekananda, freedom through strength. And now Bhagwan Mahavira, freedom through discipline. Today, freedom is often interpreted as the ability to do whatever we want. Bhagwan Mahavira suggests something far deeper. Freedom begins when desire no longer commands us, when anger no longer dictates our actions, when possession no longer defines who we are. Then the soul becomes light, unburdened, and free. That is the teaching of Bhagwan Mahavira. If you are enjoying this discovery of Indic freedom in its many manifestations, do like, subscribe and share to the Neurokrish Immersion Podcast. We are on Apple, YouTube and Spotify. Thank you so much.